Chapter-4. The Seeking of the Holy Dharma. Telling of how Jetsun departed from his guru of the black art, and of how Jetsun found his guru of the true doctrine, Marpa the translator. Again, Rinpoche Milarepa's devotee spoke and said, "O teacher, thou didst mention some white deeds done by thee, which of course must mean devotion to the holy Dharma. How and by what chance wert thou brought to seek religion, and how didst thou come to encounter it?" Jetsun Milarepa said, "I deeply repented the destruction and mischief I had wrought by sorcery, in the killing of so many of mine enemies, and in producing hailstorms. I longed so for religion that I forgot to eat. In the daytime I wished to be sitting down when I was going about, and to be going about when I was sitting down. At night I was unable to sleep. I was thus full of remorse and repentance, and yet I could not bring myself to ask my teacher to allow me to adopt a religious life. Thus I continued serving my teacher, all the while earnestly desirous of an opportunity to ask him to let me go and learn the holy doctrine. About this time, a wealthy and devout lay supporter of my teacher fell seriously ill, and my teacher was immediately invited to attend upon the sick man. 3 days later, my teacher returned with a sad and downcast mien. I asked the reason of his looks, and he replied, "How transitory are all states of existence. Last night that excellent layman passed away, and I cannot but mourn his loss deeply. I realize the misery of all worldly existence. Moreover, from my youth up, I have spent my whole time in the practice of sorcery, dealing in the black art of producing death and in bringing about hailstorms. And thou too, my son, from thy youth hast taken to this sinful art, and already hast gathered a heap of evil karma, all of which will lay a heavy load on me, since I am responsible for what thou hast done." I asked him if it were not true that all sentient beings killed by means of sorcery were in the same manner saved and sent to higher states of existence. He replied, "I understand that all sentient beings possess a ray of the eternal, and that we must work for their salvation and development. I also know the rituals to be used for the purpose, but everything dependeth upon a true understanding of the purport of the ritual, as also of the meaning of the words used. I do not, however, feel confident that this superficial knowledge would stand the test of real danger. I therefore wish now to devote myself to such sound doctrine as will stand firm and solid in the face of everything that may threaten. Do thou remain here and act as guardian to my children and disciples, and I will go and work for thy salvation along with my own. Or else, go thou thyself, learn and practice the holy Dharma on my behalf, as well as on thy own, so as to save me and procure me a birth in my next existence, which will further my progress on the path of emancipation. I will supply thee with all material support." This was exactly what I wished, and it filled me with great joy. I immediately prayed to be permitted to take to the religious life. My teacher at once gave his consent, saying, "Certainly, thou art young and richly endowed with energy, abundant perseverance, and faith. Thou wilt make a very sincere devotee. Go and live a life of pure religious study. He presented me with a yak load of fine yarlung woolen cloth, with the yak itself, a cow yak, and directed me to a place in the Sang Valley called Nar, where lived a famous Lama of the old mystic sect named Rongton Laga. This Lama was said to have acquired supernormal faculties in the doctrine called the Great Perfection of the Nyingma sect. My teacher asked me to go and learn the doctrine from this guru and to practice it well. In accordance with his wish, I went to Nar in the Sang Valley and sought the Lama. There I found the Lama's wife and some of the Lama's disciples, who told me that the place was the seat of the chief monastery, but that the Lama himself was not at home at the time, and he had a branch monastery at Rinong in the upper Yang Valley, where he would be found. Thereupon I told them that I had been sent by Lama Yongten Chogyal, and that I was willing to reward anyone who would take me to the Lama. The lady accordingly sent one of the disciples with me as a guide. At Rinong, I found the Lama and offered him the cow yak and the bale of woolen cloth as a present, saying that I was a great sinner who had come from the West Highlands in search of a doctrine which would lead to deliverance from all samsaric existence in one lifetime, and prayed him that he would impart it to me. The Lama said, "My doctrine, called the Great Perfection, is perfection indeed. It is excellent alike in its root, in its trunk, and in its branches, profitable to him from whom it hath been obtained, to him who hath obtained it, and in its fruit, which is the knowledge of yoga. He who meditateth upon it in the day is delivered in the course of that day, and the like happeneth to him who meditateth upon it in the night. To the gifted, to those whose karma favoreth, the mere hearing of the doctrine is sufficient to procure them deliverance. They do not need to meditate upon it. This is a doctrine for those intellects that are most highly developed. I will impart it to thee." He initiated me there on the spot and gave me the necessary instruction. At this, the thought arose within me that formerly, while I was engaged in learning sorcery for killing purposes, it had taken me 14 days to attain my desire, and in the case of launching hailstorms, I had required 7 days, whereas now I had met a doctrine which would emancipate me at any time, by day or night, whenever I chose to meditate upon it. While to the gifted and specially favored by their good karma, the mere hearing thereof was sufficient to deliver them. I said to myself, why, I myself may be one of these favored and gifted persons. Thus was I so puffed up with pride that I would not meditate, but instead went to sleep over my task, and so failed to put the doctrine to the test of practice. After a few days, the Lama came to me and said, "Thou didst call thyself a great sinner, hailing from the highlands, and in that thou wert quite correct. On my part, however, I have been rather too lavish in my praises of my doctrine. At all events, I see quite well that I shall not be able to convert thee. Now there is a monastery called Dawa Lung, the Wheat Valley, in Lobrock, wherein liveth the present a faithful disciple of Naropa, the great Indian saint. He is the worthiest among the worthiest of men, a very prince among translators, one who hath obtained supernormal knowledge in the new tantric doctrines, unequaled in all the 3 worlds. He is called Marpa the translator. Between thee and him there is a karmic connection, which cometh from past lives. To him thou must go. On hearing the name Marpa the translator, my mind was filled with an inexpressible feeling of delight, and a thrill went through my whole body, setting in motion every hair, while tears started from mine eyes, so strong was the feeling of faith aroused within me. I therefore set out with the single purpose of finding this guru, carrying only a few books and some provisions for the journey. All along the way, I was possessed by but one idea. When shall I set eyes upon my guru? When shall I behold his face? The night before mine arrival at Wheat Valley, Marpa had a dream to the effect that his guru, the great Saint Naropa, came to him and performed the initiation ceremony and gave him a dorje made of lapis lazuli, five-pointed and slightly tarnished, and along with it a golden pot for holding holy water filled with elixir, and ordered him to wash the dirt off the dorje with the elixir in the pot, and to raise up the dorje upon a banner of victory. He added that this would please the victorious ones of the past and be welcome to all sentient beings, thus fulfilling the aims both of ourselves and of others. Having said this, the saint reascended into the heaven world. Then in his dream, Marpa saw that he carried out the instructions of his guru, washing the dorje with the holy elixir as directed, and elevating it upon a banner of victory. Thence the dorje shed abroad such a brilliant radiance as filled all the worlds with its light, and falling upon the sentient beings existing in the 6 lokas, dispelled all their griefs and sadness, filling them instead with bliss unalloyed with sorrow, so that in their delight they all looked upon Marpa and his banner of victory with overflowing faith and reverence, some worshipping, some singing praises, and some making offerings. He further saw in his dream that the victorious ones pronounced benedictions upon the banner and performed the consecration ceremony, and that he himself was somewhat elated and proud. He then awoke feeling very happy. When his wife came in to serve breakfast, she said, "O Master, I dreamt last night that 2 men who had said they were from the Urgyan land of the West came carrying in their hands a crystal reliquary, which was a little dirty, and asked me to tell thee that thy Guru Naropa enjoined thee to consecrate the reliquary with all due ceremonial of a proper consecration, and to place it on the top of the hill. And thou wert saying that already it had been blessed by the great Saint Naropa, but that whatever he commanded must be obeyed, and thereupon didst wash it with holy water from the urns, perform the consecration at the sun and the moon, and in addition reproduce several other reliquaries similar to itself, which settled down on the tops of neighboring hills, 2 female forms acting as guardians. What doth this mean?" All but inwardly pleased at the coincidence and the purport of these 2 dreams, outwardly Marpa only said, "I do not know the meaning of dreams which have no cause. I am going down along the road there to plow the field today. Make ready." His wife said, "But thou hast ever so many laborers to work for thee. What will people say if thou, a great Lama, go and work in the fields like a common laborer? It will create quite a scandal. Please stay at home. Do not go." But despite all her pleading, Marpa went to the field, merely saying, "Bring me a good supply of chang." Upon his wife taking a jarful down to him, he said, This may perhaps do for myself. Bring some more for visitors. Another jar was brought, which he placed on the ground, covering it with his hat, and sitting down beside the jar, he sipped the chang and rested himself after his ploughing.